Okay, so hello again and welcome to a chapbook launch that I've been super excited about for a couple of weeks. We are thrilled to be collaborating with the Rumpus tonight, Whitewell Bookstore is rather, to celebrate the launch of Taylor Byas's debut chapbook, Bloodwarm, which is out this month from Variant Lit. Tonight we'll be hearing readings from and conversation with Taylor, Byas, Kendra Allen, Chazaro, Jason B. Crawford, and Diamond Forde. And this evening will be emceed by Rumpus Editor-in-Chief Marissa Siegel. So I'll turn it over to Marissa after my quick little intro, some Zoom housekeeping, and then I'll see you all again at the end of the night. So a little bit about myself and Whitewell Bookstore quickly. I'm Anna, I'm the events director at Whitewell Bookstore. And for those of you who aren't in Pittsburgh, I think we have some people from all over. The readers themselves are from all over, so that's exciting. We are a family-owned general interest independent bookstore in the Bloomfield neighborhood of Pittsburgh. We normally have a ton of events going on each week. We're taking a little bit of a summer break this July and August because we have a lot of other stuff going on. We are expanding. We just hired a ton of new staff, so very grateful for those exciting things. But we do still have a couple of pretty exceptional events coming up this month. So on Wednesday, July 28th at 7 p.m. Eastern, we're delighted to welcome back Maricel Vera in celebration of the paperback release of her novel, The Taste of Sugar. We loved getting to be a part of her launch last year with Pittsburgh Arts and Lectures. And this time around, she'll be joined by writer and professor Jennifer Maritza McCauley for reading and conversation. And on Thursday, July 29th at 7 p.m. Eastern, we are thrilled to host a virtual poetry reading with Catherine Pond, author of Field Glass, Diana Kwai Wynn, author of Ghost of, and Alexandria Hall, author of Field Music. So that's July 29th. And all of that and more is on our website at whitewellbookstore.com. So a couple of notes on our Zoom settings. You'll all have your audio off. You probably noticed that you can't turn it on at the moment, and your video off for the duration of the reading and the conversation. At the end, we will have a moment for everybody to turn those things on and say hello and applaud and congratulate Taylor on her chapbook. So definitely stick around for that. You've all probably also noticed the chat is open, activated, so please feel free to interact with everybody, interact with the work and the poets, say hello. We do just have an attendee code of conduct that you can view on our website that we ask that you abide by over the course of the evening. If you have any questions or concerns about tech or something else, you can message me privately through the chat as well. For best viewing, I recommend hiding the non-video participants if you like, which you can do by right-clicking on one of the black boxes with a name, yours maybe, and clicking hide non-video participants. And we do have Zoom's live closed captioning available, which you can probably see at the bottom of your screen. And you can toggle that on and off by clicking the CC button at the bottom of your screen and clicking show or hide subtitles. So our order tonight will be Jason, Diamond, Allen, Kendra, and Taylor. I'm going to read a blurb that's on the book from Luther Hughes, who's the founder of Shade Literary Arts. I will introduce Marissa, and then I'll sit back and enjoy a really wonderful evening with y'all. Bloodwarm is a collection that explores what it's like to live in a Black body that is constantly scrutinized and dissected beneath the white gaze. These poems both utilize and reinvigorate classic poetic forms with a voice that speaks back to the mob that hunts it. This book is an act of rebellion, an assertion of worth, a will to live. There's no escaping, there's no hiding, there is only you and the page and the hauntings in which Taylor Byas brings forth in each poem. Bloodwarm is a book that chills the spine, yes, but also meditates on the now. We are at a gas station, we are on Twitter, we are leaving a voicemail for Madam C.J. Walker. Through rhythm, repetition, and report, Byas weaves together poems that will decor the night while we sit in the dark corner counting to 10, then screaming, ready or not, here I come. And although we seek, it is her words that find us. So Marissa Siegel, our MC tonight, lives, writes, and edits near New York City. She holds an MFA in poetry from Mills College in Oakland, California. Her essay, Inherited Anger, appears in the excellent, if I can add that, anthology Burn It Down from Seal Press in 2019. And her debut poetry chapbook, Fixed Stars, is forthcoming from Burrow Press in March 2022. She is editor-in-chief and owner of the Rumpus, and you can follow her on Twitter at Marissa Says Tweet. So I will turn it over to Marissa.
Hi, everybody. I am super excited to be here and to kick off the weekend in this very wonderful way. I don't know about you, but it has been a long week for me, so I am definitely ready for some poetry. And we are going to begin with Jason. So just hang on one second while I toggle over to these bios. Okay. Jason B. Crawford was born in Washington, D.C. and raised in Lansing, Michigan. Their debut chapbook collection was Summertime Fine is now out through Variant Lit. Their second chapbook, Torkable Moments, is out from Paper Nautilus Press. Their debut full-length collection, Year of the Unicorn Kids, will be out in 2022 from Sundress Publications. And they are here now to share some words with us. So take it away, Jason.
Oh my God, thank you for having me. Congratulations, Taylor. My love, my sister, love you. You're amazing. So I'm gonna keep it brief. I'm gonna just read 2 poems because this is about Taylor, it's not about me, which is something I normally don't say. And I'm actually reading all new poems because why not? Because this is what we do. I searched for a rainbow dildo during Pride. There's something about men that don't sit right in my gut. It might just be the disappointment, how much I have to break myself in halves to fit in them. Their spaces cluttered with boxes and leftovers piling to the ceiling of their apartments, unending. Want I stuff myself with until it comes out of me a thick white porridge of guilt. Men leave much to be desired, I am told, yet here I am fantasizing to this fallacy, a slow song of loneliness that lights my phone at midnight until it is all I can taste. The metallic bite of lust. Whoever said queer men were better knew comforter arms of stay. Its unwillingness to yield anything other than an axe at my knees. The violence of staying, me staying, of me practicing prayer in between a boy's summer warm thighs bowed around my neck where he'd say choke, and I know he means it. Every word. I claim this space as my own, and I am selfish, I know. Something silicone and suction cup will give me what a man could never. The sanity of being quiet during the whole spreading of my goodwill. I will most likely not buy it, but I call this a small ritual. Open tab, search the girth in its neck, size up how much space the last boy could not fill. Plastered across my bed frame, sloppy and free from the violence of staying. Yeah, cool. So I'm gonna read one more poem, and like I said, I'm gonna just get out your hair because again, I'm here for Taylor and the rest of the readers, but mostly Taylor because she's my sister. And yes, she really is my sister if anyone's asking. When I finally leave New York, I'm going to burn everything that I own. I've only known of the river as communion, traced along Michigan's long blue veins until I find a clean passageway home. Somewhere I belong, built in a forest of boys slap-boxing the summer's sweat. A coliseum of staggering buildings stretched inwards towards me with their mushroomed fingers. I am a country child, born in a city that hates me more than I can love myself. But let's unpack the stones softly rolling around my palms. This is where the stork left, me, at the foot of a planet learning to murder itself sweet. With gas, I'm trying to understand the color green, all the life that it could hold, but I cannot shake this feeling of what I owe. Thank you again. And Taylor, congratulations. I am so, 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 so proud of you. I love you.
Thank you, Jason. That was awesome. That was quite a way to begin. Okay, we are not slowing down. Next up is Diamond. Wait, I want to say one thing quickly because I always forget to mention this. We are going to have a Q&A at the end of this, and so we want to hear from you. I have a couple questions, but mine are less interesting than yours, I promise. So please drop those questions in the chat, and Anna will collect them all for me, and we will get to as many as we can. You can leave them at any point during the reading. Okay, back to Diamond. Diamond Forde's debut collection, Mother Body, is the winner of the 2019 Saturnalia Poetry Prize. Diamond has received numerous awards and prizes, including the Pink Poetry Prize, the Furious Flower Poetry Prize, CLA's Margaret Walker Memorial Prize, and more. A Callaloo and Tin House Fellow, Diamond's work has appeared in Boston Review, Honey Literary, Obsidian, Massachusetts Review, and elsewhere. She currently lives in Asheville with her partner and their dog, Oatmeal. Diamond. Let me just find the button to mute myself and take it.
Hey, everybody. Oh my God. Yo, I'm really excited to be here. Like, and I mean that with like my entire heart, right? Because like, this is a moment to celebrate you, Taylor. And I feel so honored to be a part of that celebration. But also like, this is the kind of thing that I kind of came to poetry for, right? Like the kind of idea of like coming together on love, right? Like the love for you, but also the love that you put into this book, the love that you have for yourself, the love that you have for Black folks, the love that you have, right? That brought everybody here, right? It's a day of love for sure, and I'm really excited to get to kind of celebrate that love with you. That's really dope. It's more than I could ask for. Like Jason, who read the fuck out of those poems. I have two poems that I'm going to share with you guys tonight because I really do want us to kind of get to Taylor, celebrate Taylor, live in Taylor's words. Let's go ahead and jump into that. So I can't write about the ocean without it being about slavery. But what if I want to fuck the ocean? How do we scholar circum-Atlantic trade and my desire to dip my oyster moist on the saline face of Earth? I'm saying I want to straddle the sea with both hips slapping like rafts, unshackle from kelp's clasp, wrapping my legs, hell to dive without needing to net bones from the sea floor and shore. Maybe this is a queer poem. Maybe the ocean is Mami Wata and I want to tongue her trenches or hold her swells and my palm small shell. Maybe I want to stew in the primordial brew from which life oozes, but do not read me from the sea slick with afterbirth. This isn't baptism or beast, not communion nor kink, and do not think of ships on the horizon, ghosts in their sails. Instead, a consortium of crabs scuttling the seabed or seagrass licking worship from my feet, or the California sheephead, a carnivorous species of fish who isn't afraid to flip a black urchin on its back and see. We both know what I did there, made metaphor dangerous and recklessly misfit. And this, the thicket of trying to unbramble me in a conceptual sea. See, this poem is about my wish to pound waves in my wet wonder. It's ass and ashy knees, my Black body, literal and literate, and mine anywhere. Moon pie, or a fat ode to pussy and marshmallows. Forgive me. this habit of feeding food into sex, but I hunger proudly on my backside alone, shame, sugaring my eating habits since grade school, soft girl, hips buttering, eating like I was owed something sticky, so my pussy must be moon pie. Nickname my love below like celestial honeypot, candy mountain. Every language has a sweet for my sweetie, meat muffin, smelly jelly, yeast cake, yum yum, Switzerland, and its sweet bun, Spain, and its figs, Japan, whose euphemistic manju plumes in the mouth feather wide. Did you know? There are marshmallow girls wheeling on the cover of Tokyo Times, eye popping in pastel prints. Do they know? All the euphemisms for fat girl, big girl, curvy girl, fluffy too, or my personal favorite, thicker than a Snicker, which reminds me, maybe my taffy puller proffers different flavors, chocolate, yes, but also strawberry, banana, maybe spiced rum for Christmas, salted caramel sprinkled on a beachside salt gem straight from the sea. I know that much salt intake ain't great for my sugar basin, but I can hardly think of moon pies without sacrifice, without pigs rode by the butcher knife, snouts buoyant as marshmallows, bones masticated to a gelatin bloom. I know what it's like to be quartered. I know a gaze can blade the way I've cubed golden mangoes in my kitchen. One sickled stare I sever into nectars. My stomach smacks a melon flush, but I want most to be marshmallow because as a teenager on my first camping trip in a friend's backyard, we piled by her fire pit to roast s'mores, but I was new to fire. Every sizzle pop bungled the bravery in me. I jolted, dropped my sweet treat in the lapping flames. My friends laughed beside me. I watched the fire feed a new hunger, the kind I would only see in mirrors, wishing a single thought could send everything in smoke. But I would guard my marshmallow, consider it vigil for the shame of losing and being seen, marshmallow darkening in the shadow of their smiles. Who doesn't know how to roast a marshmallow? My cheeks funnel failure into a kind of heat. We crisp under dumb gazes, both of us at the cusp of being completely consumed by carbon. And when the wood in the fire pit cracks an autumn scent to sweater, slow death around us, my marshmallow refuses to martyr, unbuckles the oppressive heat from the fire's flame, bursts. An everyday miracle. Finding a bell pepper, budded in your bell pepper, or a note forgotten in a winter coat, glory of a new mole cradled between moon pie and thigh, then marshmallow. How it gasped, grew, plump meat bulging new in the heat. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Diamond. That was amazing. We are really not slowing down at all here. And I don't think that's going to change because next up is Alan Chazaro. Alan is the author of This Is Not a Frank Ocean cover album, out from Black Lawrence Press in 2019, and Pinata Theory from Black Lawrence Press in 2020. His chapbook Notes from the Eastern Span of the Bay Bridge is now also available on Ghost City Press. He is a graduate of June Jordan's Poetry for the People program at UC Berkeley and a former Lawrence Ferlinghetti Fellow at the University of San Francisco. He occasionally writes for SF Gate, KQED, and other publications, and is usually on Twitter and Instagram talking about basketball, anime, and Mexican-American pochoisms at Alan_Chazaro. I'll drop that in the comments for you guys while I let Alan keep the poetry coming.
Word. Thank you, Marissa. Taylor, I don't know what to say. I remember during quarantine when you and I hosted a workshop for emerging young writers that had really never been published, and how I feel like you're always giving to people and you're rooting for everybody. So to see you in this position, especially from where we were, even just 6 months ago, a year ago, it's pretty dope. And like, I'm actually really fucking humbled that you invited me to be a part of this. So thank you so much. I'm gonna follow the lead of these I'm also gonna say that I'm like, damn, I wanted to go first just because I didn't want to follow anybody. But here we are. So I'm gonna keep it short like the rest of the poets. I'll read 2 poems. The first one is called Glitch. The night entered me at a bar in Oakland, and I learned that East Bay is Pig Latin for beast. And sometimes these hills are coyotes burning in their sleep. And tonight, we need this moon between us, but who knows where this smoke will lead. And try listening to the deep whistle of a sequoia tree and know that these Nikes make me feel royal and curse minimum wage because forever is tomorrow and today will fade you without clippers and patterns will form wherever you let them. Because what's a formula if not you? And who will breathe if we cannot? And where do these things go after they are buried? And if the Bible was really truth, why does our blood gospel? And I ask about the body, and I ask as if you know what I'm praising. This poem is slightly longer, but it's more of an ode to my Mexican side. And I had a chance right before quarantine to live in Mexico and be with my abuelo and my mom who are Mexican by birth. So this is a dedication to the other side of the border. It's called the Pocho Boys Mixtape, A-side. This midday reposado has me torn and twisted, and listening to mariachis and tlaquepaque is the death I'm asking for. Siempre hay picante aquí. My tío answers to every question I ask. It took me a while to stop asking and start taking. At first, it jarred against my bones. I am no chupacabra, but I've learned every man is capable of eating even without appetite. Maybe I'm more obsessed with swallowing lies that scrape the floors of our imagination. Here's an example. I visited the birthplace of Mexican independence in Dolores Hidalgo. I ate a plate of overpriced arrachera in the plaza. A man in a wheelchair asked me for money. His eyes felt empty. His palms held nothing. And after, I visited a jail cell where historians declared Mexico's birth. I don't mean to imply we're still barred from each other, but sometimes these mountains make it difficult to look back. B-side. I'm sitting in a courtyard with Acapulco chairs, flamingo pink, avocado green, avoiding April taxes. I've never had to file taxes in Mexico before, but back in the States, I know they'll ask for more than my mother's peace. And what's the cost of leaving a country to return to your abuelo's arms? Because I've walked through minefields while somersaulting in boots, balancing a crown that isn't worth much, but weighs more than my California household. And income isn't always incoming for everyone here. And circles don't become trapezoids overnight. They're required different angles to be muscled from the promise of each morning's arrival. But who cares here about simple geometry when nothing shapes up? My barber at Doberman's tells me about his mother as he fades me out. She's a professional at cleaning up after the dreams of European tourists at a hotel in Colonia Reforma. My fears, being kidnapped by space pirates and beheaded for the syllables inside my wallet. It's irrational, I know, but what's a peso to $1 if they take away my hands? seaside. I dig through myself, crates remixed and wax pressed into the grooves of forever. And then I spin that shit for play like the B-side Brujas on East 14th all night, like Brianna's grandma when she would hit the local clubs on San Pablo to find a Mexican man with nice eyes. They come here for work, but we work them for us. It's hard not to romanticize the struggle of certain memories beneath disco lights, between cheap liquor, behind mustaches and Camaros parked in front of the house. Our roof is shingled but falling apart. There are parts of my neighborhood that aren't up to code. We have a shed in the back where Bernardo used to sleep and dreamed of sunflowers scented in lawnmowers gasoline. Don't forget, there are more than two sides to every story, just like there are more than two stories inside every mouth. Thank you. Much love to the readers before me, to the ones after me, West Coast to the Midwest. Love you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Wow, you guys this is just amazing. It's everything I wanted it to be. Truly, like this week was not, and this is the right way to end it. So I am just really thrilled to be able to be here with you. I'm going to remind everyone again to please drop some questions in the chat. We have Kendra, and then we're going to hear from the woman of the night, Taylor. But then we want to hear your questions so that these brilliant minds can speak to them. So I'm going to go introduce Kendra, but you start thinking of your questions. Kendra Infinity Allen is the author of the award-winning essay collection, When You Learn the Alphabet, and the poetry collection, The Collection Plate. Born and raised in Dallas, Texas, she loves laughing and leaving. Her work can be found on and in Repeller, Southwest Review, Frontier, The Rumpus, and more. Kendra, take it away.
Hi, all. First of all, I'm just gonna repeat all the sentiments before. I'm like so grateful to like be reading on like this panel of poets. Like that's throwing me off just to be here with y'all. I respect all of y'all art so much. Taylor, I'm like so honored that you thought of me to like just be here and celebrate with you. I cannot wait to hear what you read. I got my favorites marked up in here, so I'll be commenting. And same thing, I'm going to read maybe 3 or 4 smaller, shorter poems. And they're all about sex and sadness because, you know, what's the difference sometimes? We just okay, so the first poem I'm going to read is After Many Rippertons, Inside My Love. And what be wild is you be hearing people say our music today is like super vulgar and like in your face, but like Minnie in 1975 literally said in this song, like, will you come inside of me? Like that's the chorus of the song. And I'm just like, what are y'all talking about? Like, okay, whatever, go off. Okay, so this poem is called I'm the Note Held Towards the End. Of inside my love, you know, when she's vanishing, to think one woman made 2 complete things in me about loving, about laying, yet I still don't know the difference between pleasure and penetration, or what to do with my hands in the middle of the condys insertions. It ain't enough ring impossible to let go, turn into glitter, into powder. Here's to well-rounded wound. Turn that sad shit up. Many swear it's tranquil to be permitted, or water a whole nation with just a tip. I was only 7. If I can remember it right, I know if it won't fit to hold it inside all 5 fingers and squeeze. All right, that was my sad/sex poem number 1. Okay, the next one is just like sadness. It's just sadness, but I'll read it fast so it don't feel like that. And it's called The Super Sadness Feels Like Anger, which feels like foreskin, a default setting, stomach churns after midnight, dry eyes, Sunday morning worship, hesitation at an intersection, changed passwords, premature adulthood, missed deadlines, fitted sheets, freelancing, yes maybe, momentum, ashy knuckles, hypervigilance, corn stuff stuck in between my gap, a sucked in stomach, sinking, infantile embroidery, showtime, the next step, primary colors, my pocketbook, learned behavior, and exit, intermediate hand gripping, when my grandmother was supposed to turn 100 yesterday, but forgot all them years ago, resolution, yardsticks, small talk, an incubator, groupthink, a Ferris wheel, melodrama, accidentally swallowing water at the bottom of a 3-foot pool, meaning to swallow water at the bottom of a 3-foot pool, not drowning, sex sometimes, compulsive eating, a fed family, liquidated compensation, weakened breaths after walking up a flight of steps, a glitch, controlled air conditioning, method acting, a book release party, crashing, an accessory, writing what I do and wishing I felt better, stand together, I'll air all this shit out, thighs chafing, losing my life, gnats in the kitchen, cotton candy, the end of throwaway, 6:35 headed to Mesquite, light voices, Black exploitation and isolation, everything hyphenated, promotion, an expiration date, my idol in morning state, an organization, getting to know you, room temperature water and the sun is out, a fan blowing hot air, what I've always wanted. All right. Okay, so the next one I'm going to read is a poem called My Sex Wet. It's self-explanatory. Okay. Why did I say that? My mind. Sorry. Okay. My sex wet. Who saw the sticky, tied self to my navel? My hair, the color of damp sand now, because I made it that way. Lethargic, because I was made that way. Forced baby, forced into my life, trying constantly to omit myself back into the body. My sex wet and mama's gut, because yes, not sure. What is happening? Sorry. Not sure if I wanted to be here. Now I change cities every couple of years. It's a cessation whenever I'm touched. Okay. One more poem, and then we get to the main event of why we all here, and I'm gonna get out your way. Okay, so the last poem I'm gonna read is about the invention of the super sadness again. These poems started out about the invention of the super soaker, but I just was I'm selfish and self-absorbed in the Sagittarius, and I was like, I don't want to write about this person. I want to write about me, so I just switched it around. Okay. The invention of the super sadness was an accident. Show me how to make fun things or happy accidents, how to open up Sis's dolls, see how she blinks without a lifeline. If I'm little, show me how to win games and become a burned boy who's present enough to keep standing in doorways without shoving. Show me my name in its prototype. Let me craft elastic. Let me be better, even with the fear of water. Even when I'm sent into planets to build bums, to keep bums from liberating these burdens. Show me how to shoot these niggas faster, fill up tubs, carry space packs, become fire that holds silly knuckles. Show me the crack at my head, recede, from the filthy state waters of 50 wet states. Wave, wave, make me artless, make me barren. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Kendra. Bringing a whole lot of joy to the sadness there. That was amazing. Okay, it is time. I am going to introduce Taylor, and then Taylor is going to read from Bloodwarm. I am very, very excited for this. Okay. Taylor Byas is a Black Chicago native, currently living in Cincinnati, Ohio, where she is now a third-year PhD student and Yates Scholar at the University of Cincinnati and an assistant features editor for the Rumpus. She was the first place winner of both the Poetry Superhighway and the Frontier Poetry Award for the Frontier Poetry Award for New Poets Contest, and a finalist for the Frontier Open Prize. Her chapbook, Bloodwarm, is forthcoming, or I think out now. If it's not out now, it's imminently out, from Variant Lit this summer. And her debut full-length collection, I Done Clicked My Hails 3 Times, is forthcoming from Soft Skull Press in spring 2023. She is represented by Rena Rossner of the Deborah Harris Agency. She is the reason we are all here tonight. And so I'm going to shut up and let Taylor talk.
Hi, everybody. I have a lot of people to thank, so let me do that first. I want to first say thank you to White Whale and the Rumpus for hosting this tonight, especially Marissa for all of the hard work that you did putting this together and all of my emails that you responded to like really quickly. It was really like I was shocked by how fast you responded to my emails. To Diamond, to Kendra, to Allen, to Jason for agreeing to be a part of tonight and agreeing to celebrate this book with me. I'm getting emotional. And just being a part of this, and a huge, huge, huge thank you to everybody who is in the audience tonight, everybody who is in this room, those who aren't in this room but who have supported me, everyone who has bought the book and has helped me sell out my first print run before we even got here tonight. You know, you have these goals. We have these goals that we set for ourselves, and we have these achievements that we want to reach. And when we get there, it's like never how we imagined it to be. And that's not always a bad thing. And I say that to say that I like never imagined that this book coming out into the world would be like one of the happiest times of my life. And because of all of you guys, it has been one of the happiest times of my life. I'm sorry, I'm getting really emotional. Just seeing how much you guys support me, and all the people that have bought this book and all the pictures on Twitter, it's just been more than I could have ever imagined. So thank you guys so much for making this so special. So, oh, I didn't know I was gonna do that, but here we are. Okay, so I'm gonna get to some poems now, and I'm gonna read some poems from Bloodwarm, of course, and then I sort of always have a tradition of like reading something new. So I'm gonna end on a new poem tonight, but we're gonna start with Bloodwarm. And I'm gonna start with one of my favorite poems. I also know that this is Jason's favorite poem in the collection. So also reading this for my darling Jason, who shut it down at the opening part of tonight. Also shout out to Jenny, who I know is in this room, because you did a Brown study on this poem. And when I tell you that Brown study was one of the most amazing and brilliant things that could have ever happened to this poem. So special shout out to you, who I see is in the chat and in the room tonight. So I'm gonna start off with, I don't care if Mary Jane gets saved or not. My pantoum for the foreign folks in the room. I can't lie. I tried to imagine myself in Spider-Man's grip. My damsel in distress scream strung through the city like Christmas lights. I really did. But my black ass would never be in Spider-Man's grip. My damsel in distress don't look like Kirsten Dunst or Emma Stone. I looked, I really did. But my black ass would never be dainty enough to be rescued by a white hero. The movie villains don't look like Kirsten Dunst or Emma Stone. I looked. But the women who terrorize me in real life are dainty enough to be rescued by a white hero. The movie villains always come for the white heroine and she will cry. But the women who terrorize me in real life are strategic, hammering out an axe with tears. The playbook goes, always come for the white heroine and she will cry wolf, cry danger, call the police, the 911 call strategic, hammering out an axe with tears. The playbook goes, there's an African-American woman threatening me. Cry wolf, cry danger, call the police. The 911 call, a masterclass on acting. Mary Jane would kill me if it was in the script. There's an African-American woman threatening me. Cry until Spider-Man dropped from the sky. The way I play dead, a masterclass on acting. Mary Jane would kill me if I was in the script because what else could I be but the villain until Spider-Man dropped from the sky? The way I play dead in the cocoon of Spider-Man's web, you can tell I've practiced. Because what else could I be but the villain? I can't lie. I tried to imagine myself. Okay, I'm going to go to hypothetically speaking. So this poem was inspired by like real life events. I was at a restaurant with a partner at the time, and there was this white child who had a toy gun and was just allowed to just play with this gun, and people were sort of encouraging it and playing into it. And I just started thinking about the way that white children's imaginations are able to just sort of expand and run wild, and we're sort of expected to just like participate in these sorts of things and in these violences even. This poem is also partially inspired by Ashley M. Jones, who could not be here tonight, but who is for me still in this room. So hypothetically speaking, let's say we've just ordered appetizers. Let's say the waitress starfishes her fingers beneath her tray for balance, brings brown bread the color of her skin. Say I overdip my wings in ranch and it drips my lip, a white fang stringing down my chin, shirt. Say I wet my cloth in your water with lemon to dab at the stain. Say I only rub it in deeper, make it worse. Say the waitress returns to ask, are you ready to order? But is interrupted by the toddler at the table behind her, the boy nudging the neon orange eye of his plastic revolver into her backside. Say he screams bang, bang with every trigger pull. Let's say we finally order. Let's say you reach across the table to thumb the grease on my mouth, to spread it like lip gloss. Say our kiss becomes a crime scene, the boy murdering you while your breath is still on my tongue. Say we pull apart to find his double-fisted hold on the gun, expert steady. Say his sausage fingers fumble to cock back the hammer, honey mustard now stitched into the grip panel's patchwork. Let's say he then aims at me and fires. Say the empty clack of the hammer rebounding is still heavy enough to jerk me. Say his parents clap their hands, laughter sizzling like the fajitas in their cast iron boats. Say they watch me, wait for the clutch, the gurgle of blood, and spit together. Say they wish for my last moments. Say their smiles begin to strain at the corners, begin to say, go on, play along. So I fist my shirt in my hands. Say I spill down the leather booth onto the floor, right in the aisle. Say I look off into the far distance, eyes fluttering closed, then open again. Say a waiter steps over me. Say I reach for the ceiling, my eyes finding yours. Say you aren't impressed. Say I then stretch an arm towards you, rasp out, help. Let's say you don't. Let's say you let me die. Say you look over at the white family, the parents pointing and cheering, the boy shooting rounds of pressurized air into my black body. Let's say you don't smile when you suggest maybe someone should call 911. Okay. We're gonna do two more from the book. We're gonna go with You're It. This poem is inspired by the story of Tamla Horsford. If you are not familiar with that story or have not read it, you should. But essentially what happens is a grown Black woman went to a sleepover with all white women and was found dead the next morning. So this poem is inspired by that. And the epigraph comes from a dear friend of mine and a really fantastic and amazing poet, Joy Priest. I think you're in the room tonight. I love you. And the epigraph is, you are a Black girl, but don't know. You sleep next to it, crooked bone, split open head. And that's from Nightstick. The sleepover nettles itself into a frenzy from everyone's restlessness. You sleep yet, tossed like a horseshoe to snag on the poles of your breaths. The birds are trilling each other into silence to hear the grass sink its blades into the sole of a bare foot, the soft crunch of lost battle. Outside, you huddle under the black tarp of night with the others, shock someone with your body static. One girl dares you all into the woods for hide and seek. It will be fun, she says. But the thick foliage of the trees chokes out the moonlight. A voice tells you don't peek as they lead you into the brush, two hands over your eyes. You know how to play, right? And sure you do. You close your eyes and count to 30. You listen until there is no difference from their clumsy skittering and the sleep-crossed frisking of squirrels overhead. When you open your eyes, you are next to nothing, night unfolding like a black hibiscus in each direction. You call out to the group, ready or not, here I come. Taunt yourself with the echo. It takes a while for the eyes to adjust, to unlearn the shape of a killer from the crooked branches, to hear anything but the papered leaves snapping like bone beneath your steps. You are a fawn then. Your jelly legs steps to test the soil, the split-second freeze when suddenly the girls reappear for a different game. Yipping into the night, open mouth, a flashlight shining into your eyes, your back kissing the ground, a bounty on your head. Okay, the last poem I'm going to read for the chapbook is the final poem in the chapbook, and this is also where the title comes from. And this is Geophagia, which is just consumption of the soil or the earth. And the epigraph is, if Mike Espy and the liberal Democrats gain the Senate, we will take that first step into 1,000 years of darkness, which was a very wild tweet from Phil Bryant, the governor of Mississippi, in January of 2020. They say eating the soil might be good for you, to have your pale chiclet teeth redlined by clay, your ocean clear mud mouthwash bloodied when you spit in the sink. Mistake this for a split lip, a back alley beating that has left the tongue fat enough to rick your cries for help. Your grandmother tells you to avoid the clay cooling in the shade of the taller trees, and you don't. After rain, the clay goes garnet, clumps of wine dark up to your elbows, smeared around your lips. My God, you've gone cannibal. They say eating the soil might be good for you with all of its minerals, the blood that wept from swollen black toes and dried in the shape of another country. In death, someone fed this tree. After a few mouthfuls tonight, you feel a little madness creeping in. You watch the sunset while sitting back on your heels, its half step into darkness, packing the world into red clay. This is Bloodwarm, the heat of night closing in like a mob. Bribe the sun to set on you instead. Let it light you aflame. Okay, last poem. Like I said, I always make it a point to like read a new shit no matter how much it is. So I'm gonna read like the newest draft I own at this moment. Like this thing is 2 days old, but it also fits with, I feel like, the book in a way, and I just sort of like the note that it kind of ends on. And so I've been reading Douglas Kearney lately, and Douglas Kearney has a poem called That Loud-Assed Colored Silence. And so I wrote a poem with that title also after Douglas Kearney. And so this is my new shit for the night. And thank you all again for being here and for listening. So That Loud-Assed Colored Silence after Douglas Kearney. I hate the word microaggression because there's nothing small about that violence, or how loud I gotta be quiet when it happens. Like back in 8th grade when my white teacher accused a student of talking Black and the silence in the room turned up. How long we sat trembling in the base of it, the same way my friends and I had simmered in someone's basement the week before during a birthday party. Music so loud we gave ourselves over to reading lips. The bass's ear itch, a necklace of letters we hooked from our ears. Common tongue. Quiet was so loud in the classroom, it took me back to a stoop in Chicago's South Side, where me and a few friends sat bow-legged in a sherbet dusk, and a man's subwoofer rattled the sky back to still wet watercolor. What could we say when it was heaven's turn to talk? What could we share that hadn't already moved through us? The quiet in the classroom turned up, and we were used to that extra noise. The quiet turned up and the teacher winced, went crazy looking for the source. I'm telling you, me and my friends turned the silence up as loud as it could go and waited in it, never speaking to each other. And I promise you, I still heard every word. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone who's here for the readings. We're gonna now move to Q&A. Okay, my computer is warning me that my internet connection is unstable. So if I disappear, somebody let me know, please. But hopefully that won't happen. Let me just find the questions. Hang on 1 second. And while I look for that block of questions, I'm going to say, Taylor, I want to thank you for letting me help you throw this event. There's not a lot of people right now that I would say yes to planning an event for in 2 weeks, but you deserve all of that support and more. It has been a gift to work with you at the Rumpus and to get to know you a little bit. I hope when the world opens up, we can meet each other in real life offline. Okay, there is a whole list of questions in this chat, and I swear I was just there, but now, Anna, it seems like that whole list you sent me disappeared. I'm not sure what's okay. Thank you for resending that. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. We're going to start off with a question for Taylor, which seems fitting because this is Taylor's night. Taylor, with your embrace of form, particularly the pantoum, can you tell us a little bit more about your choices in construction? Do the lines and words come first? The overall idea? Do you know what form you're writing into?
Yes, I started a formal poem. I know what form I'm writing in. I know a lot of people have different ways of doing pantoums, particularly because it's such a particular form. I know some people like try to decide the ending or maybe like have these different ways of approaching it. And I really just start with the first stanza, and then I just sort of force myself to make it work. And I talk a lot about punctuation and how punctuation is really this magical, wonderful tool for me when it comes to form, and especially making these repeating lines new when they come around again. And I think punctuation is like my lifesaver when it comes to form, and especially the pantoum. But I always know what form I'm writing. I'm very much let's start at the top and like force ourselves to make it work. And sometimes it doesn't, and I have to delete a few stanzas, and that's okay. But I love the sort of challenge of seeing what happens in the moment. I think in that process, I stay as true to the poem as I possibly can. If I don't come into the poem with some sort of, preformed idea of what it has to be or where it has to end. And I think that's probably the most organic way that it can happen when dealing with form, is just seeing what happens as we're in it and as things are changing on the page. So that's sort of how I approach form. And I was in a reading with Michael Frazier, who's another really, really wonderful poet. And he talked about form as a container to throw a lot of things into, especially when writing about race, because you have so much to say and there's so much emotion involved. And I think also form has just been a really helpful way for me to find some sort of structure to the things that I want to say, because there is so much to say when it comes to these poems. So that's probably another reason why form is a big part of this project.
Makes a lot of sense. Does anybody else want to speak to form? I think each of these questions is directed at one reader, but I'm going to open it up to the group. So does anyone else have any thoughts on form, ways they approach form, want to speak to what Taylor said? You can just jump in.
But how do you add to that though?
No,
She did, I know.
Form queen.
It's not plenty brilliant on its own. So like, I'm gonna let that resonate.
Okay, our next question. Okay, we're going to skip to the next question because we kind of answered that question already. This is a question for Alan, but again, everyone feel welcome to chime in. That was a poem with piles of images and family and community history. Okay, so yeah, I think actually a lot of you could probably speak to this question. What's coming next? What does it look like on the page? Is it in a form, couplets, prose, etc.? Okay, so we're back to form again. Alan, it doesn't say what poem this is referencing, but my guess is it's that very imagistic one I think you read in the middle.
Yeah, so it might be the second poem that I read, Bocho Boy's Mixtape. That particular poem, I was playing on the idea. I'm really fascinated by the idea of remixing and remaking, and how hip hop in general was born out of, taking other samples of sounds, cutting them up, scratching them up, and then layering it onto something new, and then somebody putting a verse on that. And then now we live in an age where there's like remixes of remixes of remixes. So I was kind of thinking of that a little bit. I kind of like Taylor said, I let the poem evolve organically. As I've grown as a writer, I try not to come in with too much preconceptions of what I want to say or what I need to say, as much as I let the poem just kind of speak through that moment. And because that was framed through the mixtape kind of concept, I just did the A side, the B side, the C side. And I was like, I mean, if it was a real record, there'd be a D side, but I kind of felt like that incompletion was a representation of being Mexican American. So I just kind of let it live right there.
I love that answer. Does anybody else want to speak to how you use particularly imagistic language on the page? It's okay if not. No pressure. It's Friday. It's 8 o'clock here in New York. It's late. So, let's see. We have a lot. Okay, another question about form that I kind of feel like we already touched on. Here's a question that's not about form necessarily. We're poets. We could probably make anything about anything. But how do you navigate the process of writing and creating when exploring traumatic and personal topics? How do you push through fear or hesitation? I would love to hear each of you, if you're open to it, speak to this. I think this is a question that comes up at a lot of events that I have moderated. I think a lot of writers who are listening probably have questions about how you push through that fear and how do you take care of yourself. I would love to hear a little about.
Go first. I think I was sharing a poem draft with Joy once, and she said to me, "You write from a feeling. You always write from a feeling." And I had an old poetry professor who used to, it was in a nonfiction class, and she always used to say, write it hot, edit cold. And I think those two things are connected in the sense that when I'm going through things or when I'm experiencing something, and I know this doesn't work for everyone, but like I'm the type of person that has to like write it hot. And I like to sort of get down and capture the essence of what it is that I'm feeling or the essence of what I'm thinking and experiencing in that moment, because you can always come back to it, right? With a fresh set of eyes, or after, you know, your anger has dissipated or whatever the case may be. And you can decide what needs to happen with that. But I think it's also just cathartic and a little therapeutic to write through a moment. And again, I know that doesn't work for everyone, but I think writing it hot or writing from a feeling really helps me to maintain like the heart of the thing that I want to write and the thing that I want to say, because you know, anything can happen in editing. As long as you have the heart of what you want to say, you can put it in any form. You can take it from poetry to prose, or prose to back to poetry. You can do whatever you want to do, but if you've captured the thing, you have sort of the foundation that you need to work with. In getting over fear, I mean, I think that it's really helpful to remember that regardless of what it is that you want to say, there's like nobody else on this earth that is going to be able to say the thing that you have to say, or to say the thing that you have to say the way that you're going to say it. And that's just really freeing for me to remember that like nobody can write a Taylor Byas poem, and that's not like a facetious thing to say or like arrogant, like just no one can write a poem the way that I would write the poem. And I think once you remind yourself that this is my lane and it will always be my lane, I think that frees you up to get out what you need to get out.
Taylor, you do have the best answers. Truly. Like,
yeah.
Wow.
But are we surprised?
Anybody else want to speak to
I'll add to that. Can y'all hear me? I would just say, like, for me, a lot of times I don't really I talk a lot just in general, but it takes me a long time. Like I rant a lot and it takes me a long time to get to the point, but I get there towards the end. And so when I think about like when I'm writing about traumatic events or like things that I want to forget, I don't really know the exact fear. If I'm just speaking about it, I can't identify the fear unless I write it down. So that's like, it like cancels each other out, but like if I write it down, I can like identify the actual fear, and I don't take like that first thing that I wrote down as being the poem, if that makes sense. It's just me like trying to figure out what is like the issue that's going on in my head, or what is it that I need to like find like clarity on and about. And I think like you just, it sounds cliche, but it's like a cliche because it's true. Like you really do have to like just do it. Like you got to do it, and then it just starts like revealing itself to you of like what it is you need to keep, what it is you need to take out, what it is, what the story is in general. Like what is it that you even writing about? Because I think a lot of times, me especially, I don't know what I'm writing about until like I'm done writing it, and then I'm like, oh, I thought this was like a poem about growing up with my mama, but really it's about a fear of abandonment. So you gotta like, like it's just like that, like just trusting your instinct and like trusting your gut enough to even put the first part on the page, because everything after that, like it'll start making sense to you. Like if you just trust in that, like be brave enough to like just start. Yeah.
I think for me it's like two parts, and I really don't have anything spectacularly deep to add, but I think for one, poetry is my space, the poem is my space, right? Which means it's also one of the few spaces that I can go into and not have to worry about lying to myself, right? Or being told lies. I think that that's something that's inundated in every day and part and section of my life, right? And I don't want that to be my relationship with my poem. Right? Especially because there's so much sometimes that the poem has to teach me, right? So the least that I could do is kind of go into it open and honestly, right? And so that way I can kind of get something that genuinely that genuine interaction. Two, you do get scared, and that's when you have amazing people in your corner who tell you when you're being scared, right? When you're running away, right? And I mean, you have to kind of understand that like running away is not a problem, right? It's never coming back. Yeah. And I think I'm really lucky that I have people who tell me when I need to come back. So that's it.
A word.
Beautiful answer.
For me, so I'm kind of the opposite of what Taylor would do. Is I write it way after. If I try to sit down and write something right after it happens, it just doesn't come out. And it's, of course, we're different people, we're different writers. So a lot of my drafts, or a lot of the drafts that Taylor typically sees, because she's one of the first people I send them to, are from like 2-3 years ago, or I mean, even if it's 2-3 months ago, but that I've stepped away so far from the trauma, I have the ability to process it on the page, which gives me a newer sense of why I had that trauma, and what I need to write out, which is really helpful for me. I also definitely start writing, and whatever comes to mind is what I write. So I write up, like from top to bottom. I don't typically deviate and put lines in the middle until I'm starting to edit. But for the fear piece is, I mean, if anyone follows me on Twitter, I quit every other day. Although apparently I'm not allowed to anymore. Fine.
Nope.
I know what I said. But part of that quitting for me is this idea of being afraid of the work. And it's the people around me that won't let me quit that pushes me through with that fear. So I do know that a lot of times when I'm quitting, it's because I don't think I can do this, and I don't think I'm doing something spectacular on the page. And then I have friends around me that tell me, no, what you just did is something worth something, and you have to keep going.
It's like I'm listening to everybody and soaking this in and just thinking about how I approach this. I actually wanted to shout out, my mom is actually here. And I think that's important because, I'm writing about family, and it's a difficult thing as a poet once you get into the public image, into the public eye, because you're putting things out about your friends, sometimes about you, about your romances, right? And your relationships with the people in your life. So that's hella real. And that's in itself is scary. And I just kind of want to acknowledge recently, like, I think it was even a week and a half ago, my mom was like, Alitan, I don't, like, anything you say is your truth, even if it offends me or your brother, or you're a poet. Like, this is how you see the world, and you will never make me, like, as long as you feel like you're sticking to your truth, I'll never be mad at you. And that always like kind of affirmed me that like, we're only accountable to our own truths, basically. Like, I'm not writing for every Mexican American kid, you know what I mean? I'm not writing for like every person from the Bay Area. Like, I'm just writing from my intersectional sort of like specific identity. Like Taylor said, only I can write the poems that I can write. And once you lean into that and trust that, I think you can get to that point of comfort. So yeah, shout out mom. Brought it to your reading, Taylor. I think this is one of the first times that she's made it out from Texas to this. So
hi, Allen's mom.
We have a lot of questions. I'm going to ask 2 more. And I'm just choosing these randomly. So, and I actually don't even know who's asking them. So not playing favorites here. I like this question. This is for Taylor and all the readers. Can you talk a little about space, place, setting, and how you think and develop that in poems, from the south side of Chicago to the backwoods to a restaurant, but also inside of the Spider-Man universe, or often inside of the body itself? Setting felt crucially harmonic with form and content, particularly in Taylor's poems. So Taylor, why don't you kick off the answer, and then anyone else who wants to jump in, jump in.
Yeah, I think space and setting feel so sort of present in my work, partially because I was a fiction writer first. So I think when it comes to just sort of like world building, I come from a background of being taught of, okay, well, the setting has to be sort of set in place. We have to have a surefire like idea of where we are, that sort of thing. And I think that also plays into the imagery part too, but also as we've been talking about poems and the individuality of poems and how we can only write from our specific experiences, you know, there are these ways that we have to build bridges to our readers, right? This is my own life, this is my own specific experience. But if this is going to be a poem that I put out into the world, I have to build a bridge to you as a reader. And I think location and setting is often a way that I do that, and imagery is often a way that I do that. You might not have, you know, been in that restaurant with me while the little boy was shooting the toy gun, but you've probably been in a familiar setting and you've probably heard those familiar sounds, and you've probably also, you know, had the ranch drip down on the shirt and got frustrated and tried to wipe it off and smeared it in more. Like there are these ways that I'm bringing you into the poem with me or putting you in a space with me. And I think my setting and really sharp and careful images are a way to do that, because these are things that we all recognize. There are certain things that we all will recognize. And those are ways for me to pull us together in poems that are individual, because that's the nature of poetry. I think that's how we move from individual to universal in a lot of ways.
Any other thoughts on setting and place in poetry? I feel like we don't talk about this as much with regard to poetry as with fiction or creative nonfiction, but setting is actually very present in a lot of poetry. And I'm also just going to note quickly, Jason had to sneak out, but he says thank you to everyone, and we're very glad to have you.
You know, if you think about it, I think a poem is like a place where at least two different spaces sort of exist in harmony, right? So you kind of have like the setting or the occasion of the poem, the location, but you also have the space that the poem sort of takes up, right? And so there's always this kind of interplay between the kind of location and occasion of the poem and the space that it kind of creates, and exploring that. Can we reword the question just for a second? Can we have that question again?
Absolutely. Would love to hear you talk about space, place, setting, and how you think and develop that in poems. And then they gave a list of examples from Taylor's poems that she read tonight specifically. But so the question was, how do you think about and develop space, place, and setting in your poetry?
Yeah, no, I love that question, because I think for me in particular, I'm always kind of thinking about the landscape of the body, right? And especially now, and even in the poem that I read for today, the Moon Pie poem, right? I'm thinking about how do I sort of represent the kind of fat decadence of the body, right, on the page, right? What does that look like? And I have these kind of expansive lines. The poem is long and rangy, right? And it's just kind of thinking about how do I sort of embody, one, the setting of the poem, which is bodily, right? And then also thinking about occupying space on the page. And so I think it's very much thinking about how does the poem become vehicle for place too, right? In really kind of interesting ways that I'm really kind of fascinated by and thinking through. I wish I had more to say about it, but I am really kind of captivated by that kind of interaction.
Okay, I'm going to ask one more question. I think there are some really great questions here, but I think this is a nice question to end the evening with. And that question is, what advice would you give to a brand new poet who doesn't have any creative writing experience? And I'm just going to give a quick shout out to Kendra's reading list that went up at the Rumpus today, which I believe was called, Kendra, correct me if I'm wrong, What to Read When You Don't Know You're a Poet. And she talks a lot in her introduction about learning to consider herself a poet and the books that helped her do that, which this question reminds me of. But now I'm going to shut up and let each of you give a piece of advice to a brand new poet who has no creative writing experience.
I'll start, I guess. Just start reading, man. Like, just start picking, not even like picking up poetry collections, just read widely, like read things that actually interest you. Don't let nobody tell you this is the poet that you need to start with, and this is so and so who will teach you how to do this. Literally go out on your own, find what you like, go to YouTube, watch some old deaf poetry, like just like literally explore like things that interest you, even if that's music, even if that's like songwriting, because poetry is like literally everything we do. Like we couldn't write fiction or nonfiction if we didn't have poetry. And so it's always around you. So I would say for somebody who is just starting out without like that creative writing background, just open your eyes up. Like that sounds like so easy. It's hard, but like you really do just have to like open your eyes up, look up, look around, look down, look everywhere around you, and just start. Again, just start, like just start, and you can create like your own concept of what it means to be a poet. I know I struggled a lot with not thinking I'm a poet because I wasn't like the poets I loved, or I couldn't see myself up on the stage like giving a spoken word, or like I couldn't I don't know form, like I don't know what a pantun is, like I don't know any of this stuff but like I know what I like and like what interests me, and like writers who I love and look to, and I know that like just being exposed to them and just being exposed to the world around me, just like this room is poetry in here, just being open and willing, I think like willing enough to like follow your own voice, and yeah, just start.
Yeah, I think to sort of add to that and saying follow your own voice, I was thinking about permission, giving yourself permission to write about what's important to you. I think like in my own transition from being a fiction writer to being a poet, like I was writing poetry, but I feel like I was writing the poetry that I thought I was supposed to be writing, in the sense of like there are these certain types of poems and certain type of poetry that you are introduced to and that you read sort of like in our curricular system. And a lot of that poetry is not the poetry that I write now. And it wasn't until really, I'll never forget, I was introduced to Erica Dawson's poetry. And I was like, not her writing poems about just being Black and going to the mall, and like this being legitimate poetry, and this being in a book, and this being valuable. And it was like in that moment that it hit me. And I was like, I can write about whatever I want to write about. Like I can make that work, and I just have to give myself permission to write about what's important to me. And I think that is so important. Like giving yourself permission and just placing value in your stories, placing value in the pedestrian things of your life, like placing value in the everyday. Some of the like best poems are about regular ass shit, like very regular things. And so I think that's so important, just giving yourself the permission to care and to value your life and the things that matter to you, no matter how big or how small they are.
Just to add a little bit, I'll keep it fairly short because it's basically the same thing, but just start with what you know. It's never too late to start writing. I didn't start writing until I was in community college, and I was doing graffiti, and I didn't know anything about poetry. I never did a poetry assignment in my high school or middle school or anything. And I was like, you know what? I kind of like this. And I think some of it was because I was in more of the hip hop circle and like freestyling and stuff. And I found ways to make bridges into the poetry that I wanted to write. But I gave myself the permission, like Taylor said, and I trusted in myself to be the poet that I wanted to be. But it just requires a lot of confidence, trust. And at that time for me, it required me also finding people that were going to help me become that poet, because I was around a lot of male friends that would put me down. Well, put everybody down for like trying to write poetry is like not a thing you do when you're a young Mexican-American kid in the Bay. At least not back then when I was growing up. So I surrounded myself around people that I knew aligned to the person I was trying to be. It's like setting a target and like hitting it while it's moving kind of thing.
I think my advice, kind of following Taylor's lead, is kind of giving yourself permission to feel joy, and to just kind of express that joy, live in that joy. There are a lot of times in which writing poetry is going to be incredibly difficult, sometimes traumatic, sometimes frustrating. Sometimes I want to take my computer and throw it across the room, right? And there are moments where I have to kind of remind myself why I write, right? And that's the joy, right? The love that I have for language, and the love that I have for this craft process, and the love that I have for my community, right? And those are the things that kind of keep me moving when I feel like I can't keep going forward, or I just want to quit writing poetry, or I'm giving up on the poem, right? A poem doesn't, first off, poems are never finished, they're only abandoned, right? And that was something I was taught, and I believe that 100%, right? But you, just because the poem is like really frustrating right now doesn't mean that you have to give up your joy for it. The second you start to give up your joy for it, right, that's when capitalism takes over, and then the craft is all gone, and then the racists win. Fuck the racists. That's my advice. Fuck white supremacy.
Okay, thank you everyone so much. Thanks to our readers for being here tonight. Thank you, Taylor, for bringing everyone together. Truly, I don't know if I've ever been part of a launch reading where I could just feel the love so palpably, and it's really, really a special thing. Anna, thank you for being here and giving us a way to be on everyone's screens. Throughout this pandemic, bookstores have helped me bring writers to people's screens, and I am so grateful for that. And one way that everyone who's listening can support these wonderful writers and the bookstores we love is to buy books. So please pick 1 or 2 or 4 or 5 of the readers tonight and go buy some books when we're done here. And I'm gonna stop talking now and let Anna close us out.
Oh, no worries. I was just sitting here thinking, like, we got like almost an hour of just like pure art in this poetry. And then I also feel like I went to class in the best way. Like, I learned a lot from the Q&A. So thank you to the audience for your questions, and to the poets for answering them so thoughtfully. Just really overjoyed to be here. But I'm not going to talk a lot. I am going to allow the audience, you can all turn on your audio and video now. I'm just going to pull these spotlights so it'll be easier to see the whole crowd. If you'd like to turn on your stuff. So I would move over to gallery mode up in your upper right hand corner if you want to see everybody. Yeah, and please join me in a round of applause for these poets, and especially for Taylor and Bloodwarm.
Oh, so many friends.
Thank you all so much for being here. It's great to see you. Yeah, Taylor, do you want to close on anything in particular?
Oh, I just want to, again, say thank you to everyone who's here tonight, to those who couldn't make it, and everyone who has bought this book, everyone who has like loved on me in any way, shape, or form. I would not be here today with you guys if it weren't for you guys. Like, you can't do this stuff alone. We say like writing is solitary, and yeah, we say that shit, but you cannot do this alone. You can't do it without community. And I'm so lucky and so grateful to have the love and support of all of you, everybody in this room, and so many more. So thank you for making this, like, again, one of the happiest nights of my life. And I hope that you guys enjoyed yourselves and got some good poems, and that you go into the weekend feeling as fulfilled and as happy as I do. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you, Marissa, for your graceful hosting. Everybody read the Rumpus always. Everybody get Bloodwarm and Diamond and Kendra and Allen and Jason's books. I will send you all an email with links to all of those and links to our upcoming events. And I hope you all have a great night and a happy and safe weekend. Take care.